This is The Baseline, discussing the hot button topics of the NBA. Welcome, everybody. You're tuned to The Baseline. Cal Lee, Warren Shaw, discussing the hot button topics of the NBA. Special edition of The Baseline NBA podcast. We break down the finale in the Eastern Conference semifinals between the Boston Celtics and Washington Wizards. It goes 7. Winner takes the booby prize and gets to play the Cleveland Cavaliers. So I don't know if that's
the
booby trap, right? So, of course, I got my man Warren Shaw representing for www.shawsports.net, Big Kahuna PNC. What's good, Mr. Shaw? You trapped me on that one, man. You know how I like to roll out that red carpet for you. You just couldn't wait, but you had to jump in, right?
Man, we're talking about boobies and traps, so why not? So,
James Harden's coming on the show? Oh, say word.
You're right. He's the king of the booby trap at this point. But salute to all the fans listeners of NBA Baseline. We got a quick special edition here right now. Game 7, the best two words in sports, as we all know. The Celtics Wizards series has gone the way of the Wild, if you will, and I think one of us is going to be right. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to be 100% right. But I think, you'd be right because I did think you picked Boston to win in 7. I picked the Wizards to win in 6, which obviously is not happening. But they may still come out ultimately victorious after an immense game 6 where John Wall and Bradley Beal saved their seasons. They saved their bacon and forced a game 7.
And it's interesting, you went back to where we made our predictions leading up to this scenario, right? And I said, I see the Boston Celtics winning this in 7. The one thing that I didn't say, and you can't predict this, you don't factor this in, so to speak, when it comes to, the idea of trying to make these type of predictions is how teams come into that game 7. If you had asked me, Shaw, that I'd expected, the Washington Wizards to be up 3-2 in the series, and the Celtics had a must-win situation, and they win on the road, and then they go to Game 7, then they win Game 7. That to me would be how I would say, all right, that's how the Celtics won it in 7. But the way that the Celtics lost this Game 6 in Washington, it's really hard to swallow, and it almost has me feeling like I wish I had somewhat retracted. Like if I could foresee how this was going to play itself out, I would have honestly told you that I would have picked the Washington Wizards in 7 games simply because of what just happened in that Game 6. Because that to me, that was a game that the Boston Celtics should have won. That was a game that the Boston Celtics, and I said this before, that the team that really deserves to win is the one that wins on the road. And both of these teams have had this luxury of thinking like, we'll get it done at home court. And I feel like you go into that well one time too many. And if you're the Boston Celtics, while you have the luxury of knowing that you have this Game 7 at home, I feel like this Washington Wizards team winning the way that they did in Game 6 might tip the scale a little bit where it's not so heavily favored that you're going to walk away with this victory at home.
Yeah, well, I think there's not a question to me who's been the better road team, even in this series. And to me, even Washington, although they laid an egg in Game 5, they were very competitive in Games 1 and 2, forced Game 2 into overtime, and they played well on Boston's home court. So I don't think they have any angst or any repercussions to feeling like they can't win Game 7 in Boston.
The pressure is not on them, Shaw. The Boston Celtics are the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. No. They worked this hard to get this home field advantage. And while they beat the brakes off of the Washington Wizards back in Game 5, a lot could be said that they just had it that night. To say whether or not they're going to have it again in a Game 7 situation where they're expected to win this series, eventually going to the Eastern Conference Finals, I mean, there's a lot more because, look, no one expected the Washington Wizards to get this far. No one even expected them to be in the playoffs. So the pressure is not on them to go out and do their thing.
Right. I mean, what it boils down to is what you alluded to in the outset, is losing the way Boston did in Game 6. Up 5, a minute 24 left to play. IT gets trapped in the middle of the court, has that crucial turnover. Bradley Beal, while the team is shooting whatever it was, 3 of 18, I think, from the 3-point line at that point, He comes up, hits a three in transition. That was, somewhat defended. But the fact that he even had the balls to take that shot and make it, cut the lead down to 2. Figure what happens then. Boston, they don't get a good shot off or don't score. Then Wall comes down there and hits 2 free throws, ties the game. Horford hits a bank shot from the baseline and had on an impossible angle, no business going in. So you feel like the basketball gods are with you. And then Wall comes down and just buries a 3 feet behind the line in the face of Avery Bradley on a play where the action was supposed to go back to Bradley Beal. They almost even get the damn ball in on time. And Wall comes in and says, you know what? Right here is good. F it. Bump to shoots a 3 to give them basically the win in game 6. That to me is just, it's so heartbreaking.
Rip your heart out.
It is a soul-claiming 3-point shot from John Wall, because it's also a guy who's not a great 3-point shooter. He's not horrific, but he's not a great 3-point shooter. You don't expect Wall to beat you with the 3. And that to me says a lot about, just kind of like the destiny, if you will. There's a great quote on Twitter regarding that. It's like, when Al Horford hit the bank shot, it's like, we're not sure if the basketball gods, if you will, are going to approve of that. And then, of course, whatever the basketball devils, if you're the Boston Celtics, sees John Wall pull up from 3 from whatever it is, like 30 feet, and hits it right in the face of Avery Bradley, one of the best on-ball defenders in the NBA. So to me, Washington has all the momentum going into Game 7. As you alluded to, they have nothing to lose at this point. They took offense to the Celtics trying to give them some more bullet board material in terms of coming in now. They wanted to wear all black, in their hometown now. Like all that stuff.
I'm so tired of that. I'm really
the Celtics. They to me, they're I don't know how to say this without sounding a little bit angry. They're not tough. Just play your game. Don't get into the antics and trying to match wits and talk crap to the other team. Just play basketball, and I think you'll be just fine. Brad Stevens isn't even that type of coach. So when IT and Jay Crowder and all those guys, they all have this chip on the shoulder, and you can make the argument that that's what's made them good to this point. But to me, I just don't think this is a series where it's to their benefit. It's like, I think the Washington can has taught Boston out of their game in certain points of the series, and has been more physical towards the latter part of the series as well too. And you come in here, we're all black, and you're trying to get them back for what they did to you in January. Like, that tit for tat stuff doesn't work for Boston. They just got to play basketball, and all the chips are on the line for them in Game 7. They wanted to be here, have a home court advantage. They have it, but if they don't deliver, there's going to be a big X on this season if they exit.
But listen, kudos to Scott Brooks. Okay, I'm looking at the stat line of this Game 6. Between Bradley Beal and John Wall, they took 51 shots. All right, the rest of the team, I don't even think took as many. Okay,
well,
what I'm saying is Scott Brooks is leaning on his horses. He's leaning on his thoroughbreds. He's like, look, it's all on you guys. Like, if you want there to be a tomorrow, you guys have got to step up and you got to make things happen. All right. Now, does it help Otto Porter only took 5 shots? Not really. Does it help that Gortat only took 3? Markieff took 14, right? Like, and he only made like 5 of them. Like, you're not going to win a basketball game with that kind of ratio when you have the dynamic of a John Wall and a Bradley Beal. But I understand the desperation and the circumstances. If these guys aren't getting it done, Morris, Porter, Gortat, you don't dilly-dally around with this idea, this notion, let's still try to figure out a way. No, you ride the guys that are going to take the best shots possible. And that's exactly what they did with Wall and Beal. So I can't fault the Washington Wizards. If they were going to go down, they're going to go down with their best players. But Shaw, we talked about this, leading up to doing this preview. And I said, this is what I'm worried about when it comes to the Boston Celtics. This Wheel of Fortune style of who's going to be Isaiah Thomas's Robin in this type of situation. Do you have the time and the luxury now to figure out who's going to step up and be that guy next to Isaiah Thomas in order to get this done for the Celtics? Because they've been relying on it way too much, and now this could come to a head if they can't get it done with someone consistently.
It's unfortunate because I think that rears its ugly head now in the worst possible situation in time, where as their bench had outplayed Washington bench for the majority of the series, no matter who won the games, Boston's bench had been pretty good. They failed them miserably in Game 6. 5 points on 2 of 15 from the floor. Kelly Olynyk was the only guy to do anything.
And I know you have.
Positive.
I know you feel some kind of way about Marcus Smart. So
yeah. And then again, the Marcus Smart factor is very simple. He's out there, and he has no confidence. So the shots that he has
1 point. I would
right.
have I don't know if I have a ton of confidence either. In 28 minutes, 1 point.
Yeah, I mean, he took 3 shots. 2 of the shots that he took were horrific. One I'll never even understand what it was. It was like a floater off his left foot. I think the shot clock might have been running down, but even just how he set himself up for it, it's just he has no confidence in his offensive ability. He took a huge charge to kind of give the Celtics back the possession at one point as well too. So that's where he has to kind of hang his hat on. But he is a liability in every way, shape, or form right now there when it comes to the offense. And Washington knows that, and they see a guy there with no confidence. He's basically become Andre Roberson for the Boston Celtics. Defense only, and even in that, sometimes he's having a hard time because Beal ran circles around him in Game 6. It was kept getting to the basket. Beal was able to use his size, not necessarily his strength, but definitely his size and his ability to create off the dribble. And Beal, got hot, especially in the second half there, and really helped Washington to stem some of the tide that Boston was trying to pull away from, in the second half there. So for me, this Boston bench has to figure out a way to be more productive. And again, what we always say, and you allude to in kind of some offline conversations, Chauncey Billups, is the old adage, role players play better at home and all that situation. But I think it really is going to be about Boston starters. Can Avery Bradley continue the hot stretch that he's been on since Game 5, and obviously scoring 27 points in Game 6? Can he give them another 20+ point effort, along with Al Horford and Jay Crowder?
But you do also, but Shaw, you do also realize though, and listen, Bradley played all world. Okay, I've been very hard and very harsh on Avery Bradley, and I don't want to say that it's just justified. I feel like though Avery Bradley, if he's gonna be that guy, he needs to be that guy, and he needs to be that guy night in and night out. There just can't be any question anymore about that if that's how the Celtics are running their offense. Okay, like if he's gonna be their Ray Allen, be their Ray Allen. All right. But you can't be wishy-washy, and you certainly can't do this now at Game 7. But my thing that I'm looking at with this basketball team, and again, we go back to this sentiment, this mindset, where what will it take to get them to win the game? Will it take a Herculean effort by Isaiah Thomas? He gave you 27 points, but is that enough? Will that be enough? Al Horford gave you 20 points, and yet the Celtics still found a way to lose this basketball game, right? So what exactly is it going to take from their starts? Because I got to be honest with you, Shaw. If you asked me what really should go down, I would agree with you. Brad Stevens should have confidence in the way that he's been playing his guys through the course of this series. He really should not try and change anything. But if the Wizards force the Celtics' hand, I got to think that he has got to have confidence in his starting 5 to stay on that basketball court and see this thing through.
You mean the starting 4? Because that fifth member is
that fifth member is suspect, right? Yeah, it's a revolving door. So that starting 4, I gotta feel like he's gonna have those guys playing 40+ minutes in order to see this thing through. So what is it gonna take?
Well, I mean, I think it is that, and in terms of whoever that fifth guy is, who is it, and what are they bringing to the floor on a regular basis? So is it Smart? Is it Olynyk? Those are the guys who get the most minutes for the most part off the bench currently. Jaylen Brown and Terry Rozier, they play some spot minutes here and there. Jerebko didn't even see the floor in Game 6. It really is a matter of, okay, who can help them in that fifth role? Because
he didn't even play Gerald Green, who I thought,
his series has been very, very up and down, and again, he's a little bit erratic at times too, so he didn't feel. But again, that might be the emergency break glass. Game 7, Gerald Green comes in now and gives you 8 minutes where he scores 6 points, hits 2 threes or whatever the case may be, and kind of stems the tide a little for Boston. And that really has been how they played all year. But to your point and to your question directly, it really is, okay, who's going to be the guy that helps IT throughout? And I do wonder, does it take IT scoring 50 points again? Or can he kind of pace himself because Horford, Bradley, Crowder, those guys are all contributing offensively? Then IT can kind of save himself and kind of take them home in the downstretch and in the fourth quarter.
He's supposed to be the man in the fourth, right? So
that to me, I think, is the way that it's probably best going to play out. Because to me, for the most part, when guys are in that type of zone, when they're scoring 40 and 50 points, and they're kind of doing it throughout the game. And to Isaiah's credit, his 53-point game, what was it? He scored 30 points in the fight in the second half or in the fourth and overtime. Something to that crazy. It was something crazy like that. So he got hot very, very late, which I think is actually better for your team because that keeps everybody kind of involved. If somebody's kind of just dominating throughout and taking all the shots, a la like how Westbrook can do sometimes in OKC, the rest of the team isn't engaged.
You know, Shaw,
becomes a problem.
You actually bring up an excellent point because if you want to also date this back, remember when Draymond Green was just literally crushing the Cleveland Cavaliers in that game 7, and everybody is just like, yo, when is Steph going to step up? When is Clay going to step up? I mean, Draymond Green had a triple-double, I think, in the first half of that game 7 against the Cleveland Cavaliers. And then they just went completely away from him. It's like they stopped giving, like he wasn't nearly as aggressive, and he didn't take nearly as many shots. And the Warriors were still stuck on waiting for Steph and Clay to step up and make shots to go on their run. And so, you know, to me, I look at that in the same way that you're saying with Isaiah Thomas. It's like if you're asking Draymond Green or Isaiah Thomas to play out of a certain zone that they tend to put themselves in to dominate games, you could be asking, you know, for trouble because there's no guarantee that they can just suddenly flip the switch now that they've changed their mentality or their mode of how they attack and score and do all the things that they're doing, you know, if things certainly change the tide in the way that the game is being played.
Yeah, Washington's done great in terms of making adjustments. So, yeah, he still had 27 points, but he shot 8 of 24. You know what I mean? Had 5 turnovers. And as small and diminutive as he is, he's not a turnover-prone guy, at least not this season. But he has become so in the last couple of games because Washington has changed their defensive schemes and really have squared him up. And there's times where even Wall takes him one-on-one. There was a shot in Game 6. Isaiah's tried to shoot a 3 over Wall, you know, with a couple seconds left on the shot clock. And Wall correctly played Isaiah's left hand, jumped up with his right hand, which was the side that Isaiah's what the ball would be being released from. He did everything right defensively on his defensive principles there and blocked IT's shot. So IT is not going to have just the kind of this free reign to kind of just get where he wants to. Washington has made the adjustments, and that's where it comes down to other guys being able to step up and hit shots. And as we've alluded to kind of even off air, it really does become what Boston's 3-point percentage is. If those guys are nailing threes and hitting threes, and at this point, we have to accept it. They are going to take them. They're not going to change that philosophy. They're not going to stop shooting them. They're going to continue to shoot those threes. So if they fall in Game 7, then Boston has a very good chance of winning. If they struggle and shoot under 35%, then that's going to be the problem, and Washington probably takes Game 7 running away.
But like in the more words of Ric Flair, whether you like it or don't like it, Boston Celtics fans, you're going to have to learn to love it because it's probably going to be the difference for them actually winning this Game 7 and advancing themselves to the Eastern Conference Finals. All right, y'all. With that being said, let's go ahead and give our predictions. Game 7, Celtics, Wizards. Who wins and moves on to take on the Cleveland Cavaliers in the Eastern Conference Finals?
There's an old saying where sometimes people are good because they're generally good, and sometimes they're good because they think they are. And I think Washington has a little bit of both. This is a team that just their confidence is just so absurdly ridiculous, especially John Wall. I think this is a team that feels like they can come into Boston's house and go ahead and take this Game 7. I think Celtics are going to be a little bit fractured here. You know, and from a fan standpoint, I hope I'm wrong, but I think Washington wins Game 7 in a thriller. But I think it's going to take some heroics, and it's going to be some crazy guy. It might even be Wall or Beal. It might be like Markieff Morris, who's played extremely well the entire series, who hits some sort of game winner or some sort of game clinching shot that breaks the Boston Celtics back in the fourth quarter. But I got the Wizards taking this Game 7. What about you?
Well, look, I said earlier when I was making my predictions that I think the Boston Celtics are going to win it in 7. So I'm going to stick with what my predictions are. I don't back down on it just because now I give some form of an analysis and I critique, in what I see. But I will tell you this right now. And, listen, I can get lambasted by Celtics fans. I don't care. This is going to be the most unconfident decision or pick of the Celtics winning this Game 7 that I'll probably will ever give you. I really am not feeling good about the Celtics winning this basketball game. I said, it was interesting. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and I said, the Boston Celtics just need to win this game. They need to win Game 6. Okay. The way that they won Game 5, they just need to go on the road and they just need to snatch the Wizards' hearts right out of them. And they had so many opportunities to do it. They failed to do it. And then to lose in the way that they lost, it's just something to be said. There's something in the atmosphere. This could have been the awakening of John Wall. And we've been talking about this with regards to John Wall. John Wall can be the kind of player that we could be having those kind of conversations of being, one of those guys that kind of stakes his claim in these kind of runs in the playoffs, like we're seeing from Isaiah Thomas. So that to me is like kind of like the equalizer. And then you're looking down the roster, and the Washington Wizards, by no comparison, they're not completely far off in this series from what the Boston Celtics have looked like, even though technically the Boston Celtics should be the better basketball team. And I said that this was a better matchup for the Boston Celtics to win playing the Washington Wizards than the Chicago Bulls even. So the fact that this is going 7, I think the Celtics are going to win this one, because I'm sticking to what I believe that they were going to win in 7. But I'm not confident about it. Like, if they lose this, I don't think that I would be utterly surprised because of just the way that the Washington Wizards took that game 6 and just the momentum that they now have going in. This is a different kind of pressure with the Boston Celtics. Game 7 on your home court. You are the favored basketball team. I just don't know if those guys are ready for that moment. And and it's funny, Shaw, how you talked about, the whole them coming in black and, we talk about that mentality thing like we talked about the Houston Rockets, right? And I just wonder, is their mentality going to be right? Are they going to take this seriously? Because a lot of questions are going to be raised about this Boston Celtics team if they don't win this game 7 and they don't do it on their home court.
Well, I agree, and I agree and I disagree at the same time because I think both of these teams, to some degree, have achieved their level of success. But now that they're here, it's like, okay, well, you're always going to be asking for a little bit more. I think the bar for Boston was, hey, make sure you get home court advantage. Well, they ended up getting home court advantage throughout the entire Eastern Conference playoffs. So that was an accomplishment in itself. And then, okay, well, they need to win a first-round matchup. Okay, well, now they did that too, although it wasn't, in spectacular fashion, but they got that done. And now they're in a very, very tough matchup in a Game 7 against the Wizards. And from the Wizards standpoint, again, we all talked about how they started the season, looked like the team that was going to potentially be in the lottery since December, then turned things around tremendously and became one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. So they both have gotten here in very, very different ways and have achieved a certain level of success that they can all be proud of. But yeah, we rightfully have the initiative to ask the questions: what happens next? If no matter who wins and no matter who loses, what is that team going to do to get to the next step? And we know Boston is in a great position to succeed. But like you said, getting home court advantage, and getting the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, this is what it's for. It's for these moments. And if you don't deliver, all those questions about what the Celtics didn't do and, do they need another star? Are they going to make the right selection in the draft? All those things are going to come into play. No matter what, no matter who advances, they're going to be an underdog against the number 2 seed, the Cleveland Cavaliers. And we know the Cavs can win on anybody's home floor one way or the other. So that's not anything to worry about. But this would be an immense feather in the cap if Boston can get past Washington in Game 7 and go on to the Eastern Conference Finals and play the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Well said, Shaw. Well said. I would probably say that I had a thought in reference to that because it's something that we also talked about, before we were recording this preview and stuff. But to your point, I think you put it pretty well. Look, I'm not saying that the Boston Celtics shouldn't have expected themselves to be at a certain level at this point. But I do go back to the idea that what we were talking about before is that if they don't win this, we're going to always kind of look back at what the Celtics didn't do to put themselves in this position, so to speak, that you worked hard to get this number 1 seed. And if you're a number 1 seed, the expectation should be that you're getting to an Eastern Conference Finals at the very least. And then if you're the Washington Wizards, like no one even expected you to make the playoffs, but yet you're here and you're playing in a Game 7 in the Eastern Conference semifinals against the number 1 seeded Boston Celtics. Look, no matter how you slice it, this is going to be a great, great basketball game. It's been a compelling series. We've seen great basketball and we've seen some ugly basketball, but make no question, the way that the Celtics and the Wizards play that Game 6 is definitely food for thought and food for fandom to see what will play itself out in a Game 7. Once again, we'd like to thank everybody for tuning into the Baseline NBA podcast, our special edition previewing the Eastern Conference semifinals Game 7 matchup between the Boston Celtics and the Washington Wizards. Well, listen, get at my man Shaw at Shaw Sports NBA or get at me at GameFace Lee. The show's Twitter handle at NBA Baseline. Available on all the major platforms. You know how we do. If you listen to the show, we say it over and over and over again. So find any one of those major platforms. You find us. You know where we at. Download us. Listen to us. Give us comment. Give us feedback. We always love to hear from you. And hey, you might want to tell us who you think is going to win come Monday between the Boston Celtics and the Washington Wizards. Who advances and sees themselves playing against the king and his court? Once again, we'd like to thank everybody for tuning in. For the Baseline, Cal Lee, Warren Shaw, we appreciate you guys. Enjoy the game, and we'll catch up with you next time.